That's my baby. I'm a big freight train and I ain't pumping no brakes. Niggas walking by the tracks like, something saying. Fool, what you think? Got a couple loose screws. A trigger happy nigga with a couple new tools. I figure half these niggas trying to stay on point, but these rookie ass niggas trying to gain some points.
What's good? This is your boy Internal Sadist, aka Tico Tren, and I'm gonna talk about the three types of niggas basically when it comes down to it. Um, the funny thing about it is when you actually look at it as in a bigger picture, you tend to understand the black society in the Western world for all intents and purposes when you actually look at them through the lens of all three of these people. And what I mean by these three people is you got the you got the niggas on the right, you got the niggas on the left, and you got the niggas up the middle. Particularly, majority of the niggas are up the middle. There's a decent amount of niggas on the left, and there are some niggas on the right, basically, or should I say, just ignorant niggas, townhouse niggas, and niggas in the middle, basically, or as I refer to them, townhouse niggas, ignorant niggas, and black people, or as Eddie Griffin would refer to them, African Americans, blacks, niggas. Um, that's typically how that works. So when it comes down to it, you got the townhouse niggas on one side, you got the ignorant ass niggas on the bottom of that totem pole, and you got the niggas in the middle. Now the difference between the three is the niggas the niggas in the townhouse basically do stupid shit up until shit actually happens to them. They don't like a good example. If something happens to a nigga in a hood, basically, or a low level nigga, basically, what they'll basically do is they'll typically say something like, "Well, I don't believe that actually happens to you. This, that, and the other. This, that, and the other." Or they'll try to act better than that nigga. Then the sad part about that, then the same thing that happened to that nigga the nigga from the low end nigga ends up happening to the high class nigga, basically. Then the townhouse nigga ends up being like, I don't understand why this has happened to me. This doesn't make any sense. Well, no matter what your economic class is, you're still gonna get the you're still gonna get the you're still gonna catch shit for all intents and purposes. And the funny thing I've always found out about it is like the townhouse niggas or the African Americans always fuck with the always fuck with the plain niggas, basically. Because typically with the plain niggas, basically, they get themselves into trouble and they understand that they're getting in trouble, but the problem is they don't want to change their behavior so they can keep their ass out of trouble for all intents and purposes. So they want to perpetuate the same damn thing, but they want to be treated like human beings, but they want to act like animals. It's typically how that rolls. You can't sit up here and act like an animal and expect people to treat you like a human being. You act like an animal, you get treated like an animal. You act like a human being, you get treated like a human being. That's typically how this shit works. So the problem I have with a lot of these people is typically when they basically the niggas will basically do stupid shit, then complain about the police, but they didn't do anything to mitigate them actually being treated like human beings. They'll typically act like a bunch of animals or act like a bunch of big ass children. It's typically how it works. This is typically how niggas act for all intents and purposes. And this is pretty much why I've always been when it came to these types of niggas, basically, because I look at it like this: if you're going to act stupid, if you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. That's typically how I feel about niggas on the low end. I mean, don't get me wrong. Are there some niggas that get into trouble by accident? Yeah, there are. However, the vast majority of them had it coming for all intents and purposes due to stupidity and acting like savages. If you act like a savage, you get treated like a savage. I've always said you can come to me like a human being and I'll treat you like a decent human being. You come to me like an animal and I'll just skin you alive. It's that simple. And that's typically how I treat anybody that wants to act like an animal towards me. I will skin you. I will scalp you. I will skin you alive. That's pretty much how I feel about people who act stupid. Then on the other end of the spectrum, when it comes to black people, you got the African Americans or the townhouse niggas, or I call them the house Negroes. Typically, how it works with the house Negroes is they tend to always get on the niggas, the low income niggas basically, or the niggas that act like they ain't got no sense all the damn time. But the sad part about that with this group is they get in much trouble as the niggas on a low end, which I've always found funny. So the townhouse niggas get into just as much trouble. Then all of a sudden now they feel like now they know what the black people feel like when now they know what the low end niggas, the low income niggas feel like when they get treated like shit in the hood. So there's hood niggas, you got townhouse niggas, you got niggas in the middle. So typically the townhouse niggas, they typically they typically do tend to meet the other end, the poor end of a cop every now and again, and then you hear their story, and all of a sudden now they want to act. They want to be, well, I understand what the black people have been talking about. Oh, obviously, this obviously has been going on for a while. This and the other. Like, nah, nigga, you late as hell. You should have known. You should have known better, nigga. Like, you gotten so high and mighty, you forgotten where you came from, and you forgot that you were black up until a situation happened to you that made you realize that you's a nigga. That's typically how townhouse niggas act. They basically, you know, talk shit on, ain't shit niggas until shit actually happens to them. Then it's all of a sudden, oh my god, I can't believe this happened to me, and this is crazy, and this is out of character. I can't believe this happened to me, and that's typically how they act. Then you got niggas in the middle like me that know that they tend to not listen to niggas, the townhouse niggas, because they know townhouse niggas is up their heads is up their own ass. And the sad part about that, you got the niggas over here in the hood niggas basically, or the low income niggas that's just acting a straight fool, and we understand why they're getting their ass whooped for all intents and purposes. Whereas the townhouse nigga don't understand what's actually going on, but he wants to talk shit, but he doesn't know the actual symptoms and what's actually going on with the low end niggas basically. It's typically how it works. So what ends up happening is the middle niggas typically stay out of trouble with the law. That's typically how that shit work. Middle niggas typically stay out of trouble. They're less likely to get in trouble with the law than the townhouse niggas or the ain't shit niggas basically. So niggas in the middle basically. I'll call them libertarian niggas basically. Libertarian niggas typically stay out of trouble with the law more than their conservative counterparts and their liberal counterparts for all intents and purposes. Typically how it works is because we know the ins and outs and we know how shit can happen, we typically think about how we can avoid stupid shit on a regular basis. So it's one of those things where we're constantly thinking about how can we avoid stupid shit so we won't get into stupid shit, so we can avoid stupid shit just in case somebody has an accident for all intents and purposes. So typically the niggas in the middle typically always avoid misunderstandings or minor misunderstandings or accidents for this reason, because they don't want to be a part of the bullshit. They don't want to have to participate in the bullshit if they can avoid the bullshit. So the sad part about that is the niggas in the middle pretty much practice preventative measures so they won't end up like the ain't shit niggas or the low income niggas basically. It's typically how it works. Whereas the townhouse niggas, because their head are so far up their ass, they don't believe none of this stuff ever happens, and they believe none of this stuff could ever happen to them up until they're pulled over, and now they want to make a YouTube video about it and shit like that. You see how that works? Yeah, the townhouse niggas will basically make a YouTube video about stupid shit like this. When it's like, you can't believe it happened. Are you serious right now? You think this? You think this is play? You think everybody out here play pimping? And that's something I've always found funny about townhouse niggas. They can't believe shit is happening up until the shit is actually happening to them, and they're appalled and taken back, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Like, it's one of those things. It's like you just want to slap a nigga, basically. You really want to slap a townhouse nigga at that point. And that's typically how I feel about it. And because the niggas in the middle always typically stay out of trouble from all the bullshit, what tends to happen is the niggas on the right are, got their heads in the cloud up until, a cop got their heads on their neck or they boot on their neck, or, they're being treated unfairly. And now they want to, act accordingly. Whereas the townhouse niggas, they get into the messes on a regular, and they still want to act like fucking animals, and they wonder why they continuously get into the messes. And this is the sad part about it. It's like, and something I've noticed about the difference between when it comes to townhouse niggas and niggas, low end niggas or ain't shit niggas, basically, is typically because townhouse niggas like to run their mouth. Townhouse and niggas end up in the same mess as low end niggas for all that purposes. I know my rights. Okay, yeah, know your rights with my boot on your neck. This isn't right. This is not how I'm supposed to be treated. Okay, that sounds like a personal problem. Take it up with my boss or the magistrate or anybody else for all intents and purposes. And that's simply how cops treat them. And the sad part about that, there's not too many niggas who escape shit like this for all intents and purposes for this reason. There's not too many townhouse niggas that can actually escape shit like this, and they typically end up on the wrong end of the stick too. They may end up on the wrong end of the stick less than their ain't shit nigga counterparts, but they end up on the wrong end of the stick more often than the libertarian niggas or the niggas in the middle for all intents and purposes that know no shit could go down and no shit could go south very quickly. So they typically live a preventative life. They live a preventative life so they can prevent themselves from being fucked with by the cops. Whereas townhouse niggas, they think they so above everybody that they can't be stopped, and then when they get stopped, they want to act shocked. That's typically how the shit works for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where you as a man have to realize your limitations, what you can and cannot do as a man, as a black man. And it's one of those things when if you're a libertarian nigga or a preventative care nigga, preventative measures nigga, basically, you typically know both sides on how it works. You basically know that the townhouse niggas is catching heat, and you know that the ain't shit niggas is catching heat. So it's one of those things where you do everything that the townhouse nigga ain't doing, or is for forgot what he's supposed to do, and in all the teaching growing up, because he believes that because I come from money or I come from this household, shit can't happen to me. When in fact, shit can still happen to you. Whereas the ain't shit niggas think that shit shouldn't happen to them, even if they're being stupid. So typically, the niggas in the middle or the preventative niggas basically take every precaution and step that both these sides aren't taking. So what happens is they take the knowledge of a townhouse nigga and they combine it with the ain't shit niggas not doing for all intents and purposes, and they make a better plan and goal so they can avoid being on the wrong end of the stick when it comes to shit like that. It's pretty much how it works. The sad part about that is townhouse niggas don't know how to do that because they believe that because they grew up in this nice neighborhood and they drive a nice car and they have all this great stuff, that shit can't happen to them. When in fact shit can happen to them. The sad part about that is townhouse niggas, shit would happen to a townhouse niggas, but a townhouse nigga would keep it to himself and pretend like it never happened. Then another shit happened. Then he wants to make a YouTube video about it saying, I was treated unfairly by the police and I can't believe this happened. Welcome to the club, nigga. Welcome to the club. Now you know how these niggas over here feel. We don't know what that feel like. Now you know what it feel like, and they always know what it feel like. And it's simply how it works. But the sad part about that is the townhouse nigga gets himself into trouble for this reason, for the fact that he doesn't believe none of this shit happens, and his head's always up his ass, and he believes that everything's gravy and great. The ain't shit nigga gets in trouble for just being an ain't shit nigga and acting like a wild animal. Like I said, if you act like an animal, you deserve to be treated like an animal. If you act like a human being, you'll get treated like a human being. The sad part about that is ain't shit niggas don't know how to, know when to stop or know when to stop running their fucking mouths. And they typically end up in the messes that they are in. Or, they'll resist arrest or they'll do stupid shit and they wonder why they end up in the mess they are. Or they wonder why the cops treat them the way they do. And the sad part about that, they'll make all kinds of assumptions that the cops shouldn't treat them like this. But the sad part about that is they're not taking any necessary steps to actually improve how cops actually view them. You see what I'm saying? So the ain't shit niggas ain't taking any necessary steps to actually improve upon how people actually view them. If they improve upon how people actually view them and stop acting like ain't shit motherfuckers or acting like, well, I don't care, man. I live my life, this and the other. Yeah, you live your life and you're going to live your life dead for all intents and purposes. And no, I'm not going to cry for you because you're stupid. And that's simply how I feel about ain't shit niggas that want to do that. And they always want to make excuses for why they can't change their fucking ways. And typically a lot of niggas basically stay in squalor and they never want to change their ways and they wonder why they end up a statistic. Now you're a statistic. Why am I not shocked? Duh. And the sad part about that, the same thing goes for townhouse niggas too, because they typically run their mouths like, like they forget that they not black and shit like that. and then they typically end up in a mess where they're getting a headlock, trying to break into their own car and shit like that, or trying to avoid stupid shit like that, or trying to do simple shit that they think they can do, but they forget the color of their skin, and then shit ends up happening. It's typically how it works. And it's funny how you live in a nice neighborhood, but your neighbor forgets that you actually live there, and they want to call the cops on you. Now you have risks with your neighbors because he called the cops on you while you're trying to break into your own fucking house. It's typically how this shit works. So the sad part about that is what a lot of townhouse niggas forget that yeah, they are niggas. At the end of the day, they're still niggas. They just happen to be niggas with more money. That's all it really is. You're just nothing more than niggas with more money. And the sad part about that is because you're niggas with more money, you think you have more rights than other people when in fact you really don't because you're just niggas with money. Sad part about when niggas with money is they typically run their mouths and they typically get themselves into messes because they open their mouths a little too fucking much because they feel as though they got this pride to being, from influence from some money. They're coming from like, upper class family. So they typically run their mouths a little much and they end up being bitch smacked by the law for all intents and purposes. And then it's only a matter of time before they actually can climb from up under the law and actually go on and live their lives freely for all intents and purposes. And that's typically how it works. Because the sad part about that, townhouse niggas typically run their mouths to the cops just as much as ain't shit niggas run their mouth to the cops. And that's pretty much how it works. Only thing different is he's not cussing them. The only thing different is the townhouse nigga's not cussing out the cops and he's merely just running his mouth. And he forgets that, he got some shade in this. He got some little bit of shade in his skin. And he wonder why he's under a billy club or he's wonder why he's in the back of a paddy wagon or, a police cruiser for all intents and purposes for this reason. And that's typically how it ends up working and panning out for a townhouse nigga. Whereas the libertarian niggas in the middle, we just laugh at both sides because y'all niggas ain't shit. Both y'all niggas ain't shit. And this is basically where the preventative measure niggas come into play, where they basically cover all their bases so they don't end up like the townhouse niggas or the ain't shit niggas, basically. So typically, the preventative measure niggas end up getting in trouble with the law a lot less than both their counterparts. It's pretty much how it works. And it's pretty much the nature of the beast for that reason. And the sad part about that is people don't seem to understand that or get that. And they don't understand why, people like me have a certain view on both types of niggas, basically. And I'm always laughing in their fucking faces when shit happens. Or I'll laugh in their face when a townhouse nigga gets done wrong. And he goes, I cannot believe this happened to me. I go, I see nothing wrong with that. I see nothing wrong with that at all. You don't see him yanking me out of my car? Nope. I think you were resisting arrest. And that's basically how I treat them. I basically treat them like how they would treat the ain't shit niggas, basically. Like, I seen nothing wrong with that. You were resisting arrest, obviously. You shouldn't have disrespected the officer. You were disrespecting the officer. You should have shut up and listened to the officer like you got some sense. And remember that you got a little bit of shade in your skin. And that's simply how I treat them. They want to get mad at me. I'm like, nah, nigga. You don't want in trouble. Not my black ass. Sucks being you. And the sad part about that is because townhouse niggas don't seem to learn from their mistakes, they typically go on to keep on doing it until eventually one too many times when they're damn near their life is on the line, where they realize that maybe I should shut the fuck up for once and understand my place in society for all intents and purposes. And that's simply how it works. Because I've seen a lot of townhouse niggas facing death and they have an epiphany, realizing that they a nigga. These niggas usually break down and cry the most when shit like this happens. These niggas will literally break down and cry the most when shit happens to them. And it's the funniest shit in the whole entire world. Because the funny thing about that is, let's just say a good example of that is how they both actually handle having things. Like, let's just say warrants as a good example of that. How a nigga handle how an ain't shit nigga handle having a warrant. He would basically be still acting a straight fool, not laying low, not waiting for the block to be not hot for all intents and purposes. Ain't shit niggas typically do that because they think they're invincible and they think that they shouldn't be touched or they shouldn't be have to certain thing, and they think everything that happens to them is not their fault when in fact you got a warrant on you and now you're driving around in a car without a license and that's not registered with a fucking gun, or you're busted with drugs and a gun and now you're upstate basically. You see how that works? That's basically ain't shit niggas for you for all intents and purposes. If so, now on top of that, you got a warrant out for your arrest when you should have been laying low and acting like you got some fucking sense and not driving around with a car without a tail light out or without registration or your driver's license not being expired, the whole 9 yards. You might want to, just you might want to just act like you got some fucking sense, but typically they don't, and that's how they always end up in the message that they do. A townhouse nigga would basically find out he got a warrant, and he would basically just get his lawyer involved, and or have his whoever the hell he's Becky call his lawyer, so she can meet him at the thing to get him out of jail for all intents and purposes. A middle nigga basically handles a warrant by simply acting like he got some fucking sense. So the longer he acts like he got some sense, the less likely he's going to be arrested. That's typically how that works. The sad part about that is the townhouse nigga is more likely to be arrested with a warrant than a preventative nigga, basically. Because typically the preventative nigga knows the ins and outs of the law. So a good example, the difference between a townhouse nigga, a preventative nigga, a middle nigga, basically, and an ain't shit nigga is, I basically talked about this in a video when I talked about like crossing the border patrol. An ain't shit nigga would get pulled over. Let's just say we load up all 3 cars with drugs. Okay, cool. So we load up all 3 cars with drugs, and you're driving them across the border. An ain't shit nigga would get pulled over for his tail light being out, his registration being off, or something being wrong with the car, or his driver's license not being quite proper. So now not only is he going down for any of those things, he's going down for having kilos of coke in his fucking trunk. That's typically how it works for ain't shit niggas. A townhouse nigga would get too nervous and jittery, and now he's being arrested because he looks nervous. A middle nigga basically would make it across the border, no problem, because his registration's straight, his tail lights are, everything's up to date on his car, so he ain't got to worry about his tail lights or his license plate or his registration or his driver's license or any of this other shit. Basically, his story's straight, and he basically makes it across the border because he knows how this fucking works. Townhouse nigga get pulled over, and now he's being arrested for being too nervous because he doesn't know how to play it cool. A nigga up the middle basically don't get pulled over at all because he pretty much knows how this works, and he pretty much knows how to play it cool and be cool and nonchalant about shit. They ask him questions at the border. He passes all the field checks. His car passes. All his registration his registration comes back perfectly. He ain't got nothing going on in his car. They basically just let him go. Townhouse nigga gets to the border. He starts getting nervous. Now his nervousness starts alerting off people. So now the canines got to come out. Or they'll ask him why he's so nervous, sir, and this, that, and the other, and this, that, and the other. And this nigga blows his own cover. Don't get me wrong. His registration's cool. His license is cool. His car is great. And everything's on point. But that nigga's too nervous. Now that nigga's getting arrested. Now he got time. The ain't shit nigga pull across the border. Registration off. He may not have a driver's license. Tail light broken. Something's off on the car, so when you go to that state, you're not allowed to technically be driving the car because, in all technicality, it's considered as a wreck. Or he doesn't have a bumper on the car, or the muffler's falling off the car. Basically, he doesn't really give a fuck. He's basically just trying to get this money as cheap as humanly possible without checking his bases first, basically. And now that nigga's in jail now. That's simply how it works. Not only is he in jail for registration and driving a car, that's or driving without a license, basically. Now he's in jail for hundreds of kilos of coke, hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars and kilos of cocaine, basically, in his car. That's typically how it works. That's pretty much the nature of the beast when it comes to the 3 niggas, basically. Typically, the nigga in the middle basically is able to get off for the fact that he knows the ins and outs, and he knows what he needs to do, and he knows what he doesn't need to do, and he can play it cool. Townhouse nigga can't pull off that shit for the fact that he gets nervous too easily, and he gets too jumpy very easily, and he starts sweating and shit like that. Nigga ain't shit nigga basically gets in trouble for the fact that he's basically trying to keep it cheap, and he doesn't really think of covering his bases because he's typically too fucking stupid to cover his own fucking bases. And that's typically how it works, and that's typically why that nigga is always in trouble, because he doesn't think before he acts. So ain't shit niggas basically do shit by not thinking before they act, and they end up in the messes that they in. Or they want to act like animals, and they end up in the messes they in. And then all of a sudden, when shit happens to them, they want to act like they're human beings now out of nowhere after you done fucked up for a good 15, 20 minutes. Now you want to act like a human being and cry like a little bitch now. And the same thing goes for townhouse niggas. They pretend like none of this shit happens, and their heads are always up their ass. And then when shit happens to them, they wonder how it happened to them, and they can't believe that this is actually happening. And all of a sudden, now they had the same experience as the ain't shit nigga, basically. Niggas in the middle just look at both of them and just fucking laugh. And I'm one of those niggas in the middle. I look at both the townhouse niggas and the ain't shit niggas, and I just laugh at them both because I know they're fucking both stupid as fuck, and stupid as all hell. Because at the end of the day, ain't you can't sit up here and tell me that you done all this shit and you didn't once experience a time when you were treated unfairly for some odd reason. And I've always found that funny how townhouse niggas can sweep shit under the rug and pretend like it just didn't happen to them is when it actually happens to them on a regular basis or most times. It doesn't happen to them as much as an ain't shit nigga, but it happens to them quite often to them for them to actually realize, but they always write it off as something simple, basically, or something silly. The sad part about that, what I've noticed about townhouse niggas is their significant others notice the shit and actually will say something about the shit, but them goofy niggas won't say shit about the shit. And that's typically how the shit works. So it's one of those things where it's like, and the sad part about that, the thing I love about like middle niggas like me is when shit actually happens, you basically like, yeah, it's cool. Do whatever you want to do, basically. Search the car for all I care. This, that, and the other. I really don't care. And they search the car and they find nothing and they eventually let you go after you're sitting there for hours on end. It's like, yeah, whatever. Now they let you go. And the sad part about that, the niggas in the middle like me, we ain't gotta worry about shit like that because we probably got that beautiful Indian woman, or we probably got that beautiful Latina, or we probably got that beautiful other woman that's not white that'll pretty much handle that for all intents and purposes, and like, you know, be up there, like, you know, go up the cop's arm, one side of the cop like a tornado, and come down like a hurricane, basically off the other side. And that's simply how it works. Whereas the townhouse nigga got Becky, and she's calling her lawyer, and she can't believe that this happened. And this nigga's like, well, it was probably a misunderstanding. Yeah, he's basically just in denial for all intents and purposes. Because townhouse niggas tend to stay in denial for some odd reason. Whereas niggas in the middle typically know what's going on, and they basically know that they're not going to be caught, and nothing's going to happen to them for all intents and purposes. And that's typically how it works, because, you know, niggas in the middle pretty much know, and they pretty much play it cool. Whereas niggas ain't shit niggas basically do the dumbest shit in the world, and they want to be in denial like they just didn't do shit, or didn't try to swing on a cop, or didn't act like they were stupid, or didn't act like they didn't make a right-hand turn without their turn signal in a left-hand lane and shit like that. Like, come on now, nigga. You fucked up. Accept the fact that you fucked up. It wasn't the fact that the cops just pulled you over randomly. It was the fact that you fucked up, and now you don't want to accept the fact that you fucked up, so now you want to blame the cops for your fuck up. And that's pretty much how ancient niggas are. They basically are in denial, and they act like, you know, it's the cops doing them wrong. They're basically in denial, and they can't accept fault, and they want to act like they do nothing wrong. So basically, ancient niggas basically can't accept fault, and they're in denial. They can't accept fault for their actions, and they're in denial about why they've been pulled over for all intents and purposes. So they live this typical, oh, well, it's this reason. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some niggas that get pulled over for that reason, but not all niggas get pulled over for that reason. You got the niggas on the townhouse niggas that are just in straight denial mode, heads in the clouds, heads up their ass, heads in the ground, basically. No matter how you look at it, then when shit happens, it's like, well, maybe it was a misunderstanding. Well, maybe not. And the sad part about that, it's usually the white woman that's got to smack some sense into that goofy nigga to let them know that that's not how this works. You know exactly why it happened. Quit pretending like you don't know why it fucking happened. And that's typically one of those things where, like, I've noticed with the townhouse nigga, Becky ends up always cheating on him with the ain't shit nigga for all intents and purposes. Because Becky never really goes to the middle nigga. She typically goes all the way down to the ain't shit nigga, basically. It's simply how it works. And this is the fundamental difference between you got Tyrone, the townhouse nigga, you got Pookie and Ray Ray, the ain't shit nigga, and you got the niggas in the middle. That's typically how it works. The niggas in the middles move much more smoother than all the fake ass gangsters on the bottom, basically. So we have a way that we move through the world because we know that shit can happen, and we move through the world very smoothly and very peacefully and very PC, and we just make it, and we just got this charisma and this nonchalance about us that, you know, It's one of them things where it's like, yeah, it is what it is, but I'm not going down for no bullshit, basically, because I already know how this is going to pan out. Because I've already planned my day and I got my preventative measures in place. That's typically how it is. Niggas like me have their preventative measures in place, so we ain't got to worry about bullshit happening to us. Whereas townhouse niggas earned the now and they got their heads in the clouds, in their ass, or in the ground. Whereas the niggas on it ain't shit niggas, basically, just pretend shit ain't happening. Or it's not their fault and it's everybody else's fault because they can't accept responsibility for their actions or their stupidity or what they do, and they always want to blame other people while still being in the now for all intents and purposes. And that's typically the three types of niggas that you'll run into in the Western world: Tyrone, Pookie, and Ray Ray, and the niggas in the middle. There you go. Peace out, my niggas.